It is taking a while. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Vivian Acquah, and this is a special edition of Go to Thrive, where together with Mary Jane Roy, we are talking about topics that are part of the Go to Thrive anthem. And I am a DEI coach consultant, certified DEI coach and consultant, and I support companies with their DEI initiatives through every stage of the DEI continuum model. And Mary Jane.
Hey, thank you, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are when you're listening to this. I'm Mary Jane Roy. My company is Creating Waves, and Vivian and I have been working together since I think the end of 2017. We figured out, Vivian.
Is it that long?
Uh,
Is it that long?
yeah, I'm
It
pretty
feels
sure
like
it's that long.
yesterday.
Yeah, and we both of us have as one of the core values, I think, or the core qualities that we focus on is thriving in the workplace.
Mhm.
And I do this through workshops, trainings, presentations on topics such as stress hardiness, resilience, emotional agility, but also, yeah, I've just really gotten attached to the DEI sector through a lot of the work that I've done. And so I'm really happy to have these conversations with Vivian. And what we decided as a topic for today is on ageism and intergenerational workplaces.
Mhm.
Because as many of you know, we now have 4 to 5 generations that are working together.
Mhm.
And it is really the advantages of this are well known, well documented, well researched. But again, the personalities get involved. We're human after all.
You
And
can say ego.
depending,
You can say other things.
okay, all right, yeah. But I think let's first, to just set the stage.
Mhm.
Ageism is typically often thought about bias towards older people,
Yeah.
but it's also biased towards the younger generations.
Yeah.
And this is something that I really want to highlight in our conversation today, Vivian, as
Mhm.
well. And next to that, the other area that we can dive into, and it was an interesting article that I found on HBR,
Mhm.
and that is the fact that women face ageism at every stage
Yeah.
in their career.
Yeah.
So, and I think one of the other aspects about ageism is that it's something that no matter our race, our creed, our ethnicity, whatever, it's it is something that we all are have or are going to face.
Mhm. Mhm.
We are all aging. This is the
Yeah.
one common denominator. If we're lucky, let's put it that way, we're all aging, and
Yeah, and I
so
do believe that in every age phase or stage, we have something valuable to offer, right? So I'm also
absolutely.
acknowledging Valentina, who's saying hi to you as well. So hi,
Ah,
Valentina.
Valentina, hello,
Thank you
hello.
for joining and thank you for saying
Thank you.
hi back as well. And also, what I would encourage for those who are watching live, ask your questions or share your comments,
Yeah,
right? You
please.
never know when I will highlight you and we will include you in this conversation because it's not only, we don't want it to be only us talking. We can talk and we can talk for hours, but we also want to include you in this conversation as well because ageism touches all different ages as well, just like
Yeah,
Mary Jane shared as well. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, going back, because you mentioned that there are 5 generations or 4 generations working at the moment right now. Is there something that you would like to share about the different generations, or do you want me to share about the different generation? Where do you want to go with this?
Well, you share with if you've got a thought, expand, and
I
then
do have
I
a
might
scheme, so where I do have a little scheme.
take.
So when
Okay,
it
you
comes
do your thing, and I'll add in where I can. All right.
Okay, when
Okay.
it comes to the different generation, and I have to peek. When it comes to the different generation, you have the silent generation where 1925 and 1945, right? Then you have the baby boomers, who are born between 1946 and 1964. Then you have Generation X, who are born 1965 and 1980. I'm on the verge of Generation X and Millennial. Then you have Generation I, Millennials, born in 1981, 1996. And then you have Generation Z, who are born between 1997 and 2012, where I don't
Mhm.
know what Orlando will be, then Generation A, because he's from
Alpha,
2025.
Alpha, I think. I think it's
Alpha.
Generation Alpha
Okay.
is the
That's
is what
why
they've
he's
come up.
behaving like an alpha child, but that's a whole nother conversation that we can have. So you have all these different generations, and there are so many presumptions about the different generation, right? So I will speak on behalf of the younger generation, so the Generation X, Generation I, a little bit about Z, and what a lot of people are thinking when these generations are coming into the workplace, that they don't know that much, right? They don't have that much knowledge, and they need to look up to their older peers, where in the past it may be the case, but nowadays, definitely with the internet, Google, and so many other things that where they can learn from, right? They come with so much knowledge, so much pizzazz, that even I am sometimes jaw dropped into, okay, what are you doing and how old are you? And it's beyond me what they are doing
Mm,
right now.
yeah, yeah, and it is again these general assumptions, and I'm going to come
Yeah.
back to what's become a bit of a pet peeve for me, and 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 that is that, especially with the media, you
Mm-hmm.
see these dramatic headlines about
Yeah.
millennials are this and Gen
Yeah.
Zs are this, and
Yeah.
what I would really love to see happen is that we drop all of these generational labels
Yeah.
and we speak about younger and older. I
Yeah.
think that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But the more that we label something, I think the stronger the tendency is to be biased, prejudiced against that
It's amplifying
particular
it, right?
group. It
It's
does.
making it bigger, and it's
Yeah.
all about these thoughts where some, and even you, it's not only the media, but even when you are talking to a colleague or somebody else outside, when you're talking, oh, these young people, oh, they are so entitled, they come with so many demands, and so much more, whereas older people are also come with demands, but we don't talk about that, in that way. So what are you doing, and how can we prevent those labels from happening? Because when somebody is certain about what they want, that's a person who is confident. That's something that, if it's within the scope that they are doing sales or they are doing customer service, you want those skills also to portray in the work that they do. So try to think about what value are they adding, instead of looking
Exactly.
at the
Individually
annoyance. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
individually.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I
This
don't
is,
represent my whole generation.
and I don't either. I mean,
Yeah.
all you have to do is to look at the nearly 70-year-olds, and there's a
Hmm.
whole scope of how
Yeah.
we act, how we
Yeah.
are, how we live,
Yeah.
what our goals are,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah, this painting everybody in, and as I said, I think the media is really, really at fault here.
Hmm.
You know, showing older people as being uh, what's it, feeble,
Hmm.
just all of this generalizations that we
Yeah.
put onto, and so it's really about
Older,
having
working
dialogues.
slower, I presume, and even Orlando's grandparents, who are touching almost 80. His grandfather is 80, and
Mhm.
grandmother is 76. But when you look at them, you don't see that from the outside. And also, they are super active, where you don't see it. You would say that maybe they are in their 60s, somewhere in the middle. So eight is just a number, right? Look
It
at
is
look
just
at
a
the
number.
individual, look at the person, and see what capacity they can do, so that they can become of value within your organization, right? I've been working for Mary Jane for yeah, as you said, like since 2017. And from the moment with us, it went very natural, where you explained like, okay, I'm not savvy in these things, but that's where I pick up, right? We had a
Mm-hmm.
conversation. We didn't even really had a conversation. It went totally natural. But imagine when you are transparent about, okay, this is what I can do and this is what you can do. Let's see where we can meet each other in the middle so that we can create that magic, right?
Exactly.
That's a valuable
Exactly.
thing that you can learn from the both of us as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, if there's anyone here that working in organizations in HR, learning and development,
Yeah,
looking at what the individual needs are and
yeah,
not at the age factor.
yeah.
And I do think, and I'm not well versed, I should say,
Hmm.
in the government legislation here in the Netherlands where we are,
Hmm.
but there's probably there needs to be some changes in policies as well,
Yeah, yeah.
that make it easier for organizations to keep and or hire people that are older. Um,
They are putting some things in place where I would say it would be positive discrimination, but yeah, to put it simple, there are some subsidies that companies can get to retain their older generation or to hire the older generation, right? Because now a lot of people there is a pike or a peak into the workforce that is getting older and older. And how can
mhm.
you help them? How can you help them become more sustainable? And that's also something that I believe that the government is doing a positive thing. But then again, I also want to highlight that the government is also forgetting the other generations, because it's about all of us
Mhm.
being employee sustainable, right?
Exactly, exactly. I think, um, that being said,
Mm-hmm.
Vivian, the employment hiring practices,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
from a recruiter standpoint,
Yeah.
the older generation is really at
Yeah.
a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And somebody that we both know, and I'm not going to talk names here,
Mm-hmm.
but she's 60, just turned 60, and
Yeah.
she's been trying to get back into the workforce. I mean, she's got such tremendous experience behind her,
Mm-hmm.
and she wants to get in to be, with an leading agile team, coaching agile teams. And she's been, for a year, rejection after rejection after rejection,
Yeah.
and sometimes being ghosted, and
Yeah.
that's just one. There's so many
Yeah.
people around me that I'm hearing this kind of thing. It's really discouraging, and there's even research that's been done in it in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
where if you are above, I think, 60 or 64 and trying to apply for a job, you'll only 18% of recruiters would even consider looking at your
Yeah.
CV.
And
18%.
that's why I believe in companies such as Equalture or companies as Tex.io. I'm not affiliated with them. I'm just mentioning because
Mm-hmm.
they are offering tools for recruiters or for companies who have vacancies that they hire in an unbiased way, right? Because if you would
Yeah.
remove the age, if you would remove the name, but just keep the things that are needed for skills, you wouldn't know that this person will be that old, right? And also keep the history maybe at 5 years, because the longer the history is, the easier for the other person to recognize, oh, this person is this,
Uh,
they have a work experience of 20 years and you can guess the age, right? So there are so many companies out there that are helping with mitigating unconscious bias during recruiting. But I do agree that, the majority of the recruiters do need to do better and think about maybe this generation, or maybe there are some people from different generation that are working better part-time, right? Do you
mm-hmm.
need them full time. At least I, from my perspective, I never liked the idea of full time working 5 days and only have 2 days to rest and recover. So I've been the majority of my time I've always been working part time when I was an employee. Now that I am an entrepreneur or having my own business, it's a different situation where I'm able to
Mm-hmm.
schedule my time differently. But still, do we need to penalize people who are working part time and need that rest and recover? So if the older generation is not able to work full time, how can you facilitate them? How can you provide equity so that they can still be working? And on the other hand, there are a lot of youngsters who believe in I work to live, not live to work. That has always been my mantra forever and ever. I work to live, to make my life choices or
Mm-hmm.
make the things that I love in life, make them, make work supports me in that. And how can you provide that flexibility? Maybe by giving them opportunities to work remotely, right? So that they don't have to lose time and energy from going, taking public transport or driving. How can we do better in this case?
Yeah, yeah. And um, I also I want to highlight something here, and it's coming in at a different angle, Vivian,
Mm-hmm.
from what you were just sharing.
Mm-hmm.
It, I spoke yesterday with two young women,
Mm-hmm.
and one is just turned 45, and the other is 22.
Yeah.
And it, not in preparation for this, but in the course of the conversations that I had with these two younger women, uh, both the one who's 45 looks much younger, and this
Mm-hmm.
has been a curse for
Mm-hmm.
her whole
Oh,
career.
yeah.
She's been
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
25 years,
Yeah.
and she never felt that she's been taken seriously. Um, she expressed what happened. She said, you feel you're not being taken seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and that's through actions and deeds of the older people that are around you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she said, you try harder, and in trying harder, it appears that you don't have the confidence, and then
Mm-hmm.
that exacerbates the
Yeah.
problem. And she said, it's like a self perpetuating vicious circle
Yeah.
that is so difficult to come out of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had mentioned this in the conversation I had with the woman who's 22, and she said, I don't like to mention my age in the
Mm-hmm.
workplace.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm I feel
It does
confident
something.
in what
It
I.
does something to your credibility, right? The moment that, especially for women, when they disclose their age. I mean, I look, younger than I am. I'm just disclosing. I'm turning 43 upcoming Tuesday, but many people guess my age like 30, 35ish, and I'm just like, okay, but you don't see my gray hair. That's totally fine. But still, we need to look towards people. What do they have to bring instead of, getting blindsided only by the age? Age is nothing, it's just a number.
It is just a number. I think. I mean, I loved it when we were talking about what title,
Yeah.
to put to this conversation, and I said, keep
Yeah.
it simple. Age is just a number, and
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's so much going on right now. I mean, again, in the U.S. with
Yeah.
with the presidential elections coming up next year,
Yeah.
and who's the two
Well,
primary.
that's an interesting thing that you're bringing up, right? Because when people look at Biden, to what age are you okay and to what age are you not okay? But then there is also something else interesting happening, which is indirectly related to age, right? I think the last few posts I shared something about Simone Biles, who is an amazing athlete, by the way, where when women go through different phases, the moment that she got married, everybody looked upon her like, okay, but what are you going to do now? Kids are coming, right? The moment that I moved in
Mm-hmm.
here into my new house, that's the moment that I received also questions like, okay, well, when are the kids going to happen? And I'm just like, okay, but are men being asked these stupid questions? And every different age phase is different for every person. So
Yeah.
why are we penalizing women when they are entering a new phase by asking questions that I don't believe are relevant in the work that she does, right?
They,
We have
they,
seen time
they're,
to time. Yeah,
they're nobody's business but the woman herself. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's where it should start and should end.
yeah.
And so, yeah, and again, if we bring in the aspect of intersectionality here,
Yeah,
um, if you are a colored woman
yeah,
aging, this just exacerbates. If you are disabled
yeah,
colored woman, I
yeah.
mean, bring in
The
the
more
other
hurdles you are
aspects.
dealing with. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
and 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 again, even just yeah, this is I'm going off on a little bit tangent here, but I
Hmm.
remember that when my mom, who had had a stroke at
Yeah.
90,
Hmm.
uh, when she would be in the wheelchair, um, people would talk to my sister who was pushing the wheelchair,
Yeah,
and mom was perfectly, she was so lucid and
yeah,
so competent in her head.
yeah,
So her
yeah,
body didn't work the way it should anymore, but her head was still, her mind was brilliant.
yeah.
And, well, how's your mom doing, Vicky? And mom is
How are we
sitting,
dismissing people right ahead, right while they are there, right? Yeah,
yeah.
that's,
And,
yeah.
and, and I mentioned this to somebody who lives here in the village. She had
Hmm.
surgery on her hip and she was in a
Hmm.
wheelchair.
Yeah,
And I said, "Have you experienced?" She said, "Yes, they've talked over me to the person
yeah,
who's pushing my wheelchair." She
yeah,
said, "It's like you don't exist anymore, you
yeah,
know." And
yeah,
so again, these are all just little things to be aware of. They're little, but they're big. They're huge
yeah,
for the person in that wheelchair.
yeah,
For example, yeah, I don't know
yeah.
why it just popped into my head, and
No, please do,
I
please
had
do.
to, yeah.
And I see also a comment from David. Let me. Oh, it's
Okay. Oh,
David is
yeah.
sharing. Hi there. I get same situation as a man at work. Many think that I'm quite younger than my age, even having a lot of gray hair on my beards.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't look to your beards, right? But they still think that I'm in my 20s. So I just laugh when we eventually get into the conversation about age and are surprised. Yes. As long as it's
Yeah.
a good surprise, though, because age is indeed a number, right? And what is the value that somebody is going to bring to the table, but also to
Yeah.
realize that does it matter when we are having a conversation, especially when in leadership positions, right? When you're looking around the room and you notice that there is a disbalance when it comes to the age, right? There are a lot of people, more people of the older generation, whereas sometimes people who are younger, they feel like they are being excluded or they feel like they are
Exactly.
not being taken seriously just because they are young. They have a lot to offer and to bring to the table as well.
Think think this is what I was saying to both of the women I spoke to
Mhm.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Um, that when you don't feel that what you have to offer is being valued,
yeah,
then you become silent,
yeah,
and in that silence, the team, the organization, and the people you're working with, they are
yeah,
losing
yeah,
valuable input that would make a difference and can make a difference in terms of the end result.
yeah.
It just, none of this makes sense,
It
and yet
doesn't make
our
sense.
brain is constantly fooling
Yeah,
us. And the more I learn about how our brain works,
hmm,
the more I realize that we're constantly being made fools. We make fools of ourselves, in essence,
mm,
with the way the brain fools us into how we think and how we make comparisons, and
yeah,
how somebody has to look like us and then we can trust what they're saying,
yeah,
and
yeah,
someone who doesn't look like us, you're on guard. I just heard yesterday as well. Yesterday was a good learning day. But Catherine Phillips, and she passed away 3 years ago. She was a Columbia University researcher, and somebody to look into, Vivian, for sure, and the
Yeah.
work that she did in diversity and inclusion, but how our brain it becomes alert when there are different, uh, um, um, when there's diversity at the table, how our brains become more alert, more creative, but also more defensive
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
feel threatened and we
Yeah.
have to prove
And there's
ourselves
no
more.
need
So,
to feel threatened because
no,
with
it's
the
just our
sessions
brain
that we
fooling
have
us.
done in the past with virtual reality, we have done them over and over again. And each time I'm learning more about humanity. I'm learning so much more about people that in the end, we have much more in common
Hmm.
than the differences, but we don't
Yes.
pause and think about what it is or how it looks like to walk a mile in my shoes, right? Or we think about the meritocracy where everybody's wearing the same coat, but you don't know how heavy my coat is, and I don't
Hmm.
know how heavy Mary Jane's coat is. We assume that everybody is wearing the same coat and the weight is the same, but you don't know the barriers. So
No.
indeed, David has shared something that totally fits with this sentence, and
Yes,
that is time to change the narrative and the mindset. Because what
absolutely.
is happening to you and how you have grown up to perceive things, we have to unlearn, certain things and retrain ourselves into becoming more and more inclusive. Does it mean that I'm perfect? No, I'm human and I make my
Hmm.
mistakes, right?
Hmm.
For the people that don't know, and I'm shifting I'm shifting a little bit from the course, but I broke my ankle in May, mid of May, and ever since I've been on an empathy journey where I've gotten to understand more about the challenges that people face when they are dealing with a temporary or permanently immobility, right? And the things that I've noticed, the things that I've seen, it has blown my mind. I thought that um, I was doing, a lot, which I am, but I was also thinking about taking things for granted because I'm able-bodied, right?
Mm.
Not considering, the lower stoop, that it's very important to have a lowering stoop because otherwise I'm not able to roll my wheelchair or not able to roll with my stroller, which I have at the moment. I'm walking, I'm starting to learn how to walk, but there's so much more that we don't know what we don't know. And the more that we learn more about ourselves, about the blockages that we have, the unconscious
Mhm.
biases that we have, then the other step is to mitigate them as soon as possible, because that in itself, yes, the brain in a way is protecting us, but it's also hurting us from working with the different generations as well.
Yeah. And I was just thinking if we think about the different generations in the workforce, it comes
Mm-hmm.
down to having conversations,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It comes down to sitting at the same table and talking about what our beliefs are about the
yeah,
other generations, understanding what their beliefs are about other generations and about themselves. And I
yeah.
think that's one thing that I have to say. I've really started to, in the last year or two, to become so much more aware of the
Mm-hmm.
self-talk that we do
Yeah,
about getting
mm-hmm.
older.
Yeah,
And, you know, everybody forgets things at some point. They
yeah,
forget a name or they forget to do something, that they forget a
mm-hmm.
book at home that they're supposed to bring
Yeah,
with them. Everyone does this. It doesn't matter what age you are, 10
yeah, I
or
do as well.
70. Okay.
Yes.
But as we get older,
Yeah.
we affirm that this is happening because of our age by
Yeah.
saying things like, "Oh, I had a senior moment."
Yeah, that's not
And
helpful. No.
and I love the work that she's done on this, Ashton Applewhite.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a great TED talk out there,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, she uses this as an example. And she said, when I was 20 and I left a university book at home that I needed to bring for class that day, I didn't say to myself, I'm having a junior moment. we really are self-talk, and
Yeah.
I see it in my family. I mean, all of
Yeah.
us. I'm the youngest, and I'm 69 in November. I'm the
Hmm.
youngest. My oldest sister is 76, and we're in all in between. And yeah, we have we all are using this and talking ourselves into believing that
Yeah.
age has something to do with so much of what we're experiencing. And yes, it will have something to do with it, but it's not it's not signed and sealed.
Hmm.
We don't have we set limits on ourselves. We
Yeah.
really do. We
Yeah.
are prejudiced against ourselves actually, and
And
because
also
it's
what
so
I,
it's so
Mhm.
deeply embedded, Vivian, in
Yeah.
society, in the way we think and the way we behave. I think ageism because it's so subtle. It
Hmm.
it's
It's subtle,
harder
but it's
to,
peripheral. It's There's a lot happening, under
yeah,
the iceberg level where so much is not seen or felt, and it's impacting people, their confidence. It is
yeah,
amplifying imposter syndrome. And the other thing that I would like to bring as a solution is mentoring, right? You know that I
yes,
love the word
yes,
mentoring and mentorship, where the different ages can mentor each other, right? There is Deloitte that is doing reverse mentoring, but there are also a lot of people out there that are in the workplace and they don't have a mentor. So for those of you who want to learn more about mentorship, on my YouTube page, when you Google "Let's Humanize the Workplace" or you Google me, I have more of these conversations. Let's humanize the workplace, where one, I think I share two topics about mentorship. I love it, I believe in it, and I came to find out more about mentorship at a very late age, right? That's
mhm,
also the moment that I met Mary Jane, and I noticed that the value in having a mentor or becoming a mentor, it does something to your personal development, but it also does something to your professional development. And also having a mentor, it's just like looking in the mirror and asking yourself, okay, is this really true? Or having somebody that you can fall back on, or having an ambassador that supports your career growth, but also a person that can accelerate your career path.
yes, yeah, yeah. And especially if they become, as we know them in the corporate world, calling them
Hmm.
sponsors,
Hmm. Yeah,
for sure.
definitely,
And this
definitely.
and this and this mentoring between generations
Yeah.
would be,
Hmm.
because again, it is about having conversations.
Yeah. True.
And I
True.
read, Robert Baker, who posts a lot on LinkedIn and is doing a lot of work in the men as allies in that area.
Mm. Yeah.
He has a couple of younger mentors who are
Hmm.
mentoring him, and actually, I guess it is a reverse mentoring. You can't
Yeah.
help but get into that, into I think that kind of situation
Hmm.
if you are open for it.
Hmm.
So they mentor him, and he mentors them. But
Yeah.
it's the most valuable relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's learned so much. He says,
And
from
it's also about,
opening up to this.
yeah, it's also about bringing yourself up to speed to what's happening now, especially when I look back the last 15 years. A lot has happened, right? I grew up in a time where when you were doing research, you had to go to the library, or you had your own encyclopedia, and that was the information that you had, or you looked upon the news. And nowadays, information is accessible everywhere, right?
Yeah,
You have Chat GPT, where
aluminium.
I can say a lot more about that, but that was a different conversation that I had a few weeks ago. You have the library, but you have so many resources. Mary Jane mentioned HBR, which that's also a platform that I really love. You have Forbes, you have so many other platforms that are sharing resources where we can learn more from each other, right?
Mhm.
So think about,
I want to promote
yeah.
this one too, the Greater Good Science Center, University of Berkeley,
Mm-hmm,
Berkeley
definitely. Yeah.
in California.
Yeah.
They they
Yeah.
they have a newsletter. It comes daily. I don't
Mm-hmm.
mind it because I
Yeah.
can scan quickly the
Yeah.
titles of the article. Well researched,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful
Yeah.
resource. So I
Yeah.
recommend it to anyone that's listening. And
Yes.
but yeah, you're right. HBR, McKinsey, Forbes, these are all great ways that we can
And also
stay
our
abreast of what's
conversations,
relevant.
right, are also a great read.
Yeah, of course.
So
And on that
coming
note,
almost, yes, let's coming almost to the end. What is it that you want people to walk away with, Mary Jane,
hmm,
from this conversation?
yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought of that, Vivian. I hadn't thought of
Mm-hmm.
a of
I
a of a
just put it in as
final
a surprise.
one, but yeah, I think again, I'm going to go back to where our conversation I think started, and that
Mm-hmm.
is stop labeling
Mm. Yeah.
and start conversing, start listening
Yeah.
to what the other's needs are and what they can bring to the table.
Yeah.
But stop judging
Yeah.
based on a number.
Yeah. I would
That's off the
say,
cuff. That's
yeah,
that's mine off the cuff.
I would say that do your own homework, right? What biases do you have when it comes to age? There is a self-test that you can take from the EIT test that you can take where you can find out, okay, what biases do I have when it comes to ageism? And do the assignment, do your homework, right? The moment that you know your unconscious biases, what are the things that you're doing, taking action to mitigate those biases, right? And have conversation about them. I have also the Amplify DEI coaching cards where you can bring certain topics to the table to have a conversation about that, because the more we talk about
Hmm.
these topics in the workplace, the more we raise awareness about it, the more people have more an understanding of where the other person is coming from. And with the collaboration that I have with Mary Jane, I've never let that hinder me. I know my expertise and my specialism, and I know Mary Jane's specialism as well. Where in the beginning, she started out and say, but I don't know anything about podcasting. Why don't we do it together, right? That's how the journey started, where we started a podcast, and now I've seen her become, a guru, where she is even surprising me with the way she's using her tech tools right now. So we have to also give others grace and give them space, allow them to grow. And that goes to all the different generations as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thing, and that you led me to this thought,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
is that due to the grace of our brains, I
Yeah.
was saying they do make fools of us, but because of the fact that we can learn till the day we
Yeah.
die,
Yeah.
develop new neural
Yeah.
pathways, new neural connections,
Yeah.
that, and I know it's an overused cliche, but
Yeah.
in this case, you can teach an old dog new tricks. So don't discount because of age. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We might learn differently as we get older, and
Yeah.
apparently we do,
Yeah.
but we can learn. And Vivian has been a great teacher for me. So
For me,
yeah,
you have been a great teacher for me as well, right? We
that's it. Maybe
use
a good
mentoring,
case of
reverse
mentoring.
mentoring in any case as well. So
Yeah.
thank you. And thank you for this conversation. I missed us.
We'll see you all next month.
Bye. Bye,
Okay,
everybody.
bye. Thanks, Vivian.